Mike Tyson's fist connects with concrete. Again, again, again. Blood is running down his knuckles, pooling on the floor of his solitary confinement cell. He's screaming, but no words are coming out, just raw animal sounds of a man trying to tear himself apart from the inside. The metal bed frame is overturned. The toilet is shattered. The walls have holes in them, shaped like his hands. He's been in this cell for 48 hours, and for 48 hours, he's been trying to destroy everything he can reach, including himself. But 10 seconds earlier, none of the guards at Indiana State Prison knew that Officer Williams was about to walk into that cell alone. No backup, no weapons, just a 58-year-old black man with gray hair and 30 years of seeing men destroy themselves behind bars. Everyone else heard the screaming and decided to wait it out. Let Iron Mike burn himself out. But Williams heard something different in those screams. He heard his son. It's March 1993. Mike Tyson is 26 years old, 18 months into a 6-year sentence for rape. The youngest heavyweight champion in history is now inmate 92335. The man who once made opponents quit before the opening bell is now sleeping on a concrete slab in a 6x8 cell, and something inside him is breaking that no punch ever could. They put him in solitary 3 days ago, not for fighting, not for threatening guards, for crying. Tyson had broken down in the prison yard, collapsed against a chain-link fence, and sobbed so violently that other inmates didn't know what to do. Some laughed. Some looked away. One tried to comfort him, and Tyson attacked him. Not with punches but with words. Don't fucking touch me. Don't act like you know me. Nobody knows me. Nobody. The guards dragged him to solitary for his own protection. But being alone is the worst thing you can do to Mike Tyson. Because alone he's trapped with the one person he hates most in the world. Himself. The first day in solitary, Tyson was quiet. Eerily quiet. He sat on the floor staring at his hands, turning them over and over like he'd never seen them before. These hands that made him a god. These hands that destroyed his life. These hands that hit Robin Givens. These hands that couldn't save him from himself. A guard walking past heard him whispering, "What are you good for? What are you fucking good for?" The second day the rage came, and it hasn't stopped. Tyson is trying to beat the cell to death because he can't beat himself to death. Every punch into the wall is a punch he wants to land on his own face. Every scream is the sound of a man who's run out of opponents except the one in the mirror. Officer Jerome Williams has been watching this happen from the security monitors. He's seen inmates lose their minds before, seen them cut themselves, hang themselves, bang their heads against walls until they pass out. He's seen strong men turn into ghosts, but watching Mike Tyson destroy himself is different. Because Williams sees something in Tyson that nobody else does. He sees his son, Marcus, and Marcus has been dead for 8 years. Williams makes a decision. He signs out a cell key. The younger guards look at him like he's insane. "Williams, he'll kill you. Listen to him. He's gone." But Williams just shakes his head. "No, he's not gone. He's just drowning and anding. Men don't need to be left alone. They need someone to pull them up." He walks towards solitary, each step deliberate, and his hands are shaking, not from fear, from memory. Marcus Williams was 22 when he died. Heroin overdose in a gas station bathroom. But before the drugs, there was the rage. Marcus had been angry his whole life. Angry at his absent father. Angry at the neighborhood that swallowed his friends. Angry at himself for not being strong enough to escape. Jerome watched his son turn that anger inward, watched him destroy every good thing in his life, because he believed he didn't deserve good things. Watched him push away everyone who loved him because he thought love was a lie. And then one day, Marcus decided the pain was too much. The needle was supposed to make it stop. Instead, it stopped everything. Jerome found him, held his son's cold body in that bathroom, and begged him to come back. But Marcus was gone, and Jerome has spent 8 years wondering if he could have saved him. If he'd said the right thing, done the right thing, been a better father. The guilt is a weight he carries every single day, and now, walking toward Mike Tyson's cell, he's carrying it again. He reaches the cell door. The screaming inside is guttural, inhuman. Williams unlocks the door and steps inside, and what he sees stops his heart. Mike Tyson is on his knees, surrounded by destruction, his hands bleeding, his face wet with sweat, and tears and snot. He looks up when the door opens, and his eyes are wild, not with violence, but with desperation. He's a trapped animal, a dying animal. And in that moment, Jerome Williams doesn't see the baddest man on the planet. He sees Marcus. He sees his baby boy on his knees, drowning in pain, begging for someone to make it stop. Tyson sees the guard and something in him snaps. He lunges, not to hurt, to see if this man will run like everyone else does, to see if this man fears him like everyone else does. Because if Williams fears him, it proves what Tyson already believes. He's a monster, he's beyond saving, he's alone. But Williams doesn't run, and he doesn't fight back. He does something Tyson never expected. He starts crying. Real tears. They run down his face, into his grey beard, and he doesn't wipe them away. He just stands there 2 feet from Tyson, weeping openly. And Tyson freezes. His fist is raised, muscles coiled, ready to explode, but he can't move. Because he's never seen this before. He's seen fear, he's seen anger, he's seen disgust, but he's never seen a man cry for him. Why are you crying? Tyson's voice is hoarse from screaming, barely above a whisper. Williams takes a shuddering breath. Because you remind me of my son, and I watched him destroy himself the same way you're doing right now. Tyson's fist doesn't lower. I don't give a fuck about your son. I know, Williams says softly, but I give a fuck about your, and that's the sentence that breaks through. That's the dialogue. That's the moment when the entire trajectory of Mike Tyson's life pivots on the words of a 58-year-old prison guard he's never met before. Because nobody in Mike Tyson's adult life has ever said, I give a fuck about you without wanting something in return. Not his trainers, not his wife, not his promoters, not his friends. Everyone wanted a piece of Iron Mike, but this old man, crying in a destroyed cell, wants nothing except to stop watching another son die. Tyson's fist slowly lowers. He's still on his knees, still bleeding, still broken. You don't know me, he says, but there's no anger in it anymore, just emptiness. Williams sits down on the floor across from him. Doesn't care about the blood, doesn't care about protocol, just 2 men on a concrete floor, surrounded by wreckage. You're right, I don't know you, but I know what I'm looking at, and I've seen it before. Yeah, what are you looking at? A man who's trying to kill himself without dying. Williams wipes his eyes. My son Marcus did the same thing. He was angry all the time, pushed everyone away, got into fights, self-destruct, and I didn't understand why. I thought he was just bad, just broken, just weak. So I got frustrated with him, yelled at him, told him to man up, to stop being soft, to be strong. Williams's voice cracks. And you know what happened? He listened. He got so strong that he stopped feeling anything. And when you stop feeling anything, Mike, you stop wanting to live. So he put a needle in his arm, and he never woke up. I found him in a gas station bathroom, 22 years old, and I held him, and I begged him to come back, but he couldn't hear me anymore. Tyson is staring at Williams now, really looking at him, and he sees it. The same pain he feels, the same guilt, the same rage at the universe for making life so fucking hard. Williams continues, his voice steady despite the tears. So when I see you in here, destroying yourself, screaming like the world is ending, I don't see a criminal, I don't see a rapist, I don't see a monster, I see my son, and I see a second chance to say what I should have said to Marcus. What's that? Tyson whispered. Williams looks directly into his eyes. Mike, you can hit me, you can break my jaw, but you'll wake up tomorrow still in this cell, still at war with yourself, and I'll be in the hospital, and my son will still be dead. Is that what you want? More death? The silence in that cell is absolute. Tyson's breathing is ragged. His hands are shaking. I don't want to be here anymore, he says, and the way he says it, Williams knows he doesn't just mean the cell. I don't know how to stop. Stop what? Hating myself, hurting people, being this thing everyone expects me to be. Tyson's voice breaks. I'm so tired, man. I'm so fucking tired of being Mike Tyson. Williams nods slowly, then stop being him. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just did. Right now. You stopped fighting. You started talking. That's how. Williams leans forward. Mike, you think strength is violence. You think power is fear. That's what they taught you. That's what they sold. But real strength, real power, it's this. Sitting on this floor, bleeding, broken, and admitting you need help. That's the hardest fight you'll ever have, and it's the only one that matters. Tyson looks down at his hands. The knuckles are split, blood running into the lines of his palms. These hands destroyed everything good I ever had, then used them to build something new. I don't know how to build. I only know how to break. Williams stands up slowly, his knees cracking. He extends his hand to Tyson. Then let me teach you. Let someone teach you, but you gotta get up first. Tyson stares at that hand. This old black man, tears still wet on his face, offering him something nobody's offered in years. Help without conditions, love without transaction, a way out that doesn't involve violence. Tyson takes his hand, Williams pulls him up, and they stand there, in the wreckage of that cell. Two broken men holding each other upright. What was your son's name? Tyson asks. Marcus. Tell me about him. And for the next 2 hours, Officer Jerome Williams sits in that destroyed cell, with Mike Tyson, and talks about his son, about how Marcus loved basketball, how he had a smile that could light up a room, how he wanted to be a teacher, how the anger swallowed all of that, until there was nothing left but pain. And Tyson listens, really listens, because in Marcus's story, he hears his own. When Williams finally leaves the cell, the sun is coming up. Tyson hasn't slept, but he's not screaming anymore. He's sitting on the floor, calm, his hands bandaged by the prison medic. And when the guards ask Williams what he said to Iron Mike, to quiet him down, Williams just shakes his head. I didn't quiet him down. I let him know someone was listening. The next day, Tyson is released from solitary. He requests a meeting with the prison psychologist, starts talking, really talking, about his childhood, about Cos D'Amato, about the violence he's carried since he was 10 years old, about the little boy who just wanted to raise pigeons and how that boy died on a Brooklyn rooftop. The psychologist later said it was like watching a dam break, decades of pain flooding out. Officer Williams checks on Tyson every day after that, not officially, just sits with him in the yard, doesn't always talk, sometimes they just sit in silence, and Tyson starts to understand something profound. Strength isn't isolation. Strength is letting someone see you broken and trusting they won't use it against you. 3 years later, Mike Tyson is released from prison, changed, different, not healed. Healing isn't linear, but aware. He knows now that the fight he was losing wasn't in the ring, it was in his own head. And the person who taught him that wasn't a champion, or a trainer, or a celebrity. It was a 58-year-old prison guard who saw his dead son in a screaming inmate and refused to look away. But the story doesn't end there. It never does. Officer Jerome Williams retires from Indiana State Prison. He's 66 years old, ready to spend his final years with his wife, his grandkids, his garden. The prison throws him a small retirement party in the break room. Cake, handshakes, the usual. 20 people show up, guards he's worked with for decades. And then the door opens and Mike Tyson walks in. The room goes silent. Tyson isn't supposed to be here. He's not on any guest list, but he flew from Las Vegas to Indiana, specifically for this. He walks straight to Jerome Williams and hugs him, not a handshake, a hug, and he says loud enough for everyone to hear, "This man saved my life. When I was trying to end it, he didn't use force, he used truth. He showed me that breaking down isn't weakness, it's the beginning of breaking through." Williams is crying again, so is Tyson, and Williams says, "You saved yourself, Mike. I just reminded you there was still something worth saving." Tyson shakes his head. "No, you did more than that. You let me see that even when I was at my worst, covered in blood, screaming, ready to destroy anything, including myself, someone could still look at me and see a human being, not a monster, not a criminal, a human being. Do you know how rare that is?" Williams does know, because he looked at his son Marcus and didn't see a human being. He saw a problem, a disappointment, a failure. And by the time he understood his mistake, Marcus was gone. But with Mike Tyson, he got a second chance, a chance to say the things he never said to his son, a chance to love someone at their worst, and believe in their best. They stay in touch. Phone calls, letters. Tyson sends Williams money, but Williams sends it back. "I don't need your money, Mike. I just need you to stay alive. That's payment enough." In 2015, Jerome Williams dies, heart attack, peaceful, in his sleep. His wife next to him. He's 80 years old. Tyson gets the call at 4 a.m., and he breaks, not with rage this time, with grief, because Williams was the father he never had, the man who saw him completely, and didn't turn away. At the funeral, Tyson gives a eulogy, his voice shaking, tears streaming. "When I met Officer Williams, I was a monster in a cage. I was so full of hate that I couldn't see anything else. And he walked into that cage, unarmed, unafraid, and he cried for me, a man who'd never met me, a man who had every reason to hate me, and those tears broke through, something no punch ever could. Tyson pauses, looking at Williams's casket. He told me about his son Marcus, and how he wished he'd told Marcus that breaking down is okay, that anger is just pain, that doesn't know where to go, that being strong doesn't mean never hurting. And I think about Marcus a lot. I think about how many young men die because nobody tells them it's okay to cry, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to need help. He takes a breath. Officer Williams taught me that the hardest fight isn't against another man, it's against the version of yourself that wants to destroy you, and you can't win that fight with violence. You win it with truth, with vulnerability, with letting someone in. After the service, Williams's widow pulls Tyson aside, hands him an envelope. Jerome wanted you to have this. He wrote it a year before he died. Tyson opens it. It's a letter in Williams's handwriting. It says, Mike, if you're reading this, I'm gone, but I need you to know something. You didn't just save yourself, you saved me too. When Marcus died, I died with him. I went through the motions, did my job, came home, but I was hollow. Then I met you, and seeing you choose life, after everything, reminded me why life matters. You gave me purpose again. You let me be the father to you that I couldn't be to Marcus, and that's a gift I can never repay. Stay strong, son. Not Iron Mike strong, human strong. That's harder, but it's real. I love you. Jerome. Tyson folds the letter carefully and puts it in his pocket. He's carried it every day since. Years later, in interviews, when people ask Tyson about his transformation, they expect him to talk about Islam, or sobriety, or therapy, or love, and he talks about all of those things, but he always comes back to one moment: a prison cell, a destroyed room, an old man crying, and a question that changed everything. Is that what you want? More death? I realized, Tyson says, that I'd been choosing death my whole life. Not literal death, but the death of joy, the death of connection, the death of peace. I was so addicted to pain that I couldn't imagine life without it. And Officer Williams showed me that pain doesn't have to be permanent, that you can put it down, that you can choose something else. There's a photo that Tyson keeps in his office. It's not a fight photo, it's a picture of him and Officer Williams, taken at that retirement party. Two men, arms around each other, both smiling. Tyson is wearing a suit, Williams is in his uniform, and if you look closely, you can see it. Two men who saved each other. Mike Tyson is 58 years old now, the same age Officer Williams was when he walked into that cell, and Tyson thinks about that a lot, about how Williams had already lived a full life of pain and loss, and he still chose to walk into danger for a stranger, still chose compassion over safety, still chose to see the human in the monster. Tyson does prison outreach now, goes back to Indiana State Prison twice a year, talks to inmates in solitary, sits with them, listens to, and sometimes, when he meets a young man who's screaming and breaking and destroying himself, Tyson does what Officer Williams did. He sits down, he cries with them, and he says, I see you, I know what you're going through, and you're not alone. Because that's what Officer Williams taught him, that seeing someone, really seeing them, can save their life, that tears aren't weakness, they're proof you still feel, they're proof you're still human, they're proof that beneath all the rage and pain and violence, there's still something soft enough to break, and if it can break, it can heal. CTA. The footage of Mike Tyson's time in Indiana State Prison is limited, most of it sealed, but fragments exist in documentaries. In interviews where Tyson talks about his darkest days, he's always careful when he mentions Officer Williams, respectful, because some stories are sacred, some transformations happen in private, some angels wear prison guard uniforms, and nobody knows their names, except the people they saved. Officer Jerome Williams never wrote a book, never did interviews, never gave a TED talk about the day he stopped Iron Mike Tyson, with nothing but tears. His obituary, in the local Indianapolis paper, was 3 paragraphs long. It didn't mention Mike Tyson, it mentioned his 30 years of service at Indiana State Prison, his wife of 42 years, Margaret, his 3 grandchildren, his love of fishing at Eagle Creek Reservoir. That's it. 3 paragraphs for a man who saved one of the most famous people on earth. But Mike Tyson won't let the world forget him. In podcasts, Tyson brings him up unprompted,
On his YouTube channel, he tells the story to fighters half his age. In his one-man Broadway show, he recreated that prison cell moment and wept on stage in front of thousands. There was this guard, Tyson says every time, Officer Jerome Williams, and when I was at my absolute worst, when I wanted to die, but didn't have the courage to do it fast, so I was doing it slow, he walked into my cell, and he cried for me, for a man he didn't know, for a rapist, for a monster. He saw his dead son in me, and decided I was worth saving. That's the part that breaks people when they hear it, not the violence, not the prison, the crying, because we've been taught that tears are weakness, that real men don't cry, that strength is stoicism. Officer Williams understood something most of us never learn. Tears aren't weakness. They're proof you still have something soft inside, worth protecting. They're proof the world hasn't turned you completely to stone. So here's the uncomfortable question this story forces us to answer. Who's your Officer Williams? Who walked into your personal hell when you were destroying yourself and refused to leave? Who looked at you at your worst, drunk, high, violent, broken, screaming and said, I'm not going anywhere? And maybe the harder question, whose Officer Williams have you failed to be? Who needed you to walk into their cell, and you chose safety instead? Who needed you to cry with them, and you chose judgment? Because right now, someone you know is in solitary confinement, not literally, but emotionally, spiritually. They're in their own 6x8 cell, punching walls, bleeding, screaming silently when nobody can hear, and they're waiting for someone to be brave enough to walk in, unarmed, waiting for someone to see them as human instead of broken, waiting for someone to say 6 words that could save their life. I give a fuck about you. Officer Williams understood what most of us forget. Saving someone doesn't require superpowers. It requires showing up. It requires being willing to sit in someone's mess and not run. It requires loving people at their worst, when they least deserve it, because that's when they need it most. Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet, but a 58-year-old prison guard with tears in his eyes knocked him out without throwing a single punch. That's real power. That's the kind of strength that changes lives, not the strength to destroy, the strength to